Has the offensive line become the strength of the Panthers roster? I'll tell you right here on Locked On Panthers.
You are Locked On Panthers, your daily Carolina Panthers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Into another edition of the Locked On Panthers podcast, a part of the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, as always, Julian Council, talking Carolina Panthers with you every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, as we're still in offseason mode here on the show. But starting on July 17th, we'll be back to your team every day. Our motto here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Subscribe or follow for free on YouTube or wherever you listen to your favorite podcast. And be sure to follow me, Julian Council, on Twitter at Julian Council. We're coming back on the 21st of July. I'll be back with the weekly Friday mailbag. Yes, it is Friday, but we're still doing our position evaluations here on the show. So starting on the 21st, we'll be back to the weekly Friday mailbag here on Locked On Panthers, either at me or DM me over on Twitter at Julian Council if you'd like to participate in that week's edition of the weekly Friday mailbag. And on today's show, we're going to finish up our evaluation of the Carolina Panthers offense. We talked about quarterbacks, we talked about wide receivers, we talked about running backs, tight ends. Now we're going to talk about the O-line, which I talked about it a couple weeks ago. I feel like it's gone from the greatest weakness, that other than quarterback on the roster, to now the greatest strength for the Carolina Panthers heading into 2023. And one of the bigger reasons why is because the Carolina Panthers have finally been able to find out who their franchise left tackle is, and that man is Ickey Ekwonu, the 6th overall pick in the 2022 draft out of NC State. But more importantly, a guy right here from the Charlotte area, Providence Day School alum, and he solidified the left tackle position, a position that we have all been begging to find a long-term answer for since Jordan Gross retired following the 2013 season. So the biggest story about the biggest name is, how does Ickey Ekwonu build off of a fantastic rookie year? Last year, he played and started in all 17 games at left tackle. He played 100% of the offensive snaps. Every single snap taken, he took it last year offensively for the Carolina Panthers. 1,016 snaps played offensively for Ickey Ekwonu. He posted a 65.3 overall PFF grade, 67.5 pass blocking grade according to PFF as well, and only allowed 6 sacks on the season. Now, early on, we were a little concerned. I told y'all when Ickey was drafted by Carolina, and we knew from day one, no matter what Fitterer said, what Matt Rule said, Ickey Ekwonu, he was going to start day one. You don't draft a guy, the first player off of the board offensively. You don't draft him 6th overall and then look at your options being Cam Irving and Brady Christensen, who ended up playing at left guard but was an option. You don't look at those two options and tell yourself, yeah, that's what we're going to go with to start off the season when you have a guy who is a mountain of a man, who meets everything that you're looking for in that position, has the talent, and let's just be real, was going to be ready. And if he wasn't necessarily ready, he was going to have to learn on the job, because you cannot go out there and continue to put out mediocre players at left tackle who aren't going to be with you in the future. So Ickey Ekwonu, we knew going into the year, was going to be the starting left tackle. Matt Rule tried to play coy about it, and once we got down to training camp, guess what? Who was starting at left tackle? Ickey Ekwonu, who started week 1 at left tackle, and well, you know, welcome to the NFL. Myles Garrett got 2 sacks on him on back-to-back plays. And honestly, were you really that surprised? Myles Garrett's one of the best defensive players in the NFL, probably the best edge rusher in the NFL. Ickey Ekwonu was playing in his first game in the NFL. They don't have too many of those guys in the ACC. Now, Clemson's had a couple of them. There's been some pretty good players coming out of the ACC at edge rusher, but none as good as Myles Garrett was at A&M and has been so far in the NFL with the Cleveland Browns. I was not concerned or surprised at all. Now, the next week, he gives up another sack there against the New York Giants, but after that, nails. The dude was awesome. 10 straight weeks Ickey Ekwonu went without giving up a sack. When it seemed like there was a revolving door, it was always an issue there at left tackle. Ickey Ekwonu stabilized the position. He held up and kept the quarterback, whoever it was, whether it was Baker Mayfield, whether it was PJ Walker, whether it was Sam Darnold, he kept them up for 10 straight weeks. So by God, no one can be upset about what Ickey Ekwonu did last year, even if he gave up 6 sacks. So it's 3 in his first 2 games, and after that, 3 the rest of the way. in the final 15 games of the season. And you will take that even if it was Trent Williams out there or any sort of, well, I guess not Trent Williams. You never want to see Trent Williams give up a single sack. You don't even think it's possible how good that man is. But still, you will take that, especially after what we've seen over the last couple of years. And just looking at Ickey Ekwonu's performance, dating back to when Jordan Gross last played here in Carolina, look, these are the left tackles. These are the primary left tackles the Carolina Panthers put out there over the last couple of seasons. Let's go back to 2022. Cam Irving, or 2021 rather. Cam Irving had a 56.0 PFF grade, played 589 snaps in 9 games, gave up 3 sacks. The problem for Cam Irving was, well, he wasn't very good when he was out there at left tackle, but also he only played in 9 games. And this was a recurring theme for the Carolina Panthers over the last couple of seasons. 2020, Russell Okung, who is now really slimmed down. I used to call him the rent-a-tackle, was a fine player for the Panthers, had a 73 PFF grade, only played 407 snaps in 7 games, and allowed 3 sacks. So the problem with Okung was, okay, he's good, up in age, a little long tooth, and he was saying right before the season, I don't know, man, if I really want to deal with this COVID stuff, I might just retire. That's never a good sign. But when he was out there, he was a good player. The problem was the Panthers played 16 games. He only played 7. You needed someone to be healthy. 2019, you had 2 different guys who split the reps as the main left tackles on the team. Dennis Daly, as a rookie out of South Carolina, had a 57.7 PFF grade. I do recall there was a game in London against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers where he got a lot of help there at left tackle and had a fantastic PFF grade, the best among tackles that week. Well, if you ask any Tennessee Titans fan from last year when he had to step in for Taylor Lewan, Dennis Daly ain't that guy. And you don't have to ask a Titans fan because you're a Panthers fan and you also saw Dennis Daly play. 57.7 PFF grade that year, 686 snaps played, 9 starts, 8 sacks allowed. Darrell Williams, bless his heart, a guy who was an all-pro at right tackle, suffers an injury, loses his spot to Taylor Moton, who's been fantastic, been a stalwart there at right tackle for the Carolina Panthers over the last couple of seasons. He gets forced into duty playing left tackle, and well, it was a problem. 56.1 PFF grade and 12 sacks allowed during 2019. Go back to 2018. Chris Clark, 61.7 PFF grade, 13 starts, 8 sacks allowed. And, well, one of those things where it's like, okay, what are you going to do? You got Chris Clark out there, injuries, so we'll see how it works out. Didn't really work out. 2017, y'all will remember going that year, the Carolina Panthers were in search of a left tackle, and they gave Matt Khalil 5 years, $55 million. Well, he only played 1 season, and that was in 2017, the last time the Panthers went to the playoffs. And by no surprise, when you talk about playoffs and the Panthers, well, the last time they went to the playoffs is the last time outside of last season they had a guy at left tackle who played in every single game. Matt Khalil, though, was not very good, 62.4 PFF grade in 16 games, gave up 6 sacks. And then the year before, oh my God, the man who single-handedly cost Carolina Panthers the Super Bowl back in 2015, Mike Remmers, posted a surprising, considering what we saw, 71.2 PFF grade in 16 games and gave up, of course, 9 sacks that season. But before that, the Panthers might have been changing out their left tackle every year, but there was consistency. Like Michael Orr in 2015, when the Panthers, of course, went 15-1, went to the Super Bowl, started every game. Byron Bell the year before that, when the Panthers were trying to figure out how you're going to replace Jordan Gross. Is it going to be Nate Chandler? Is it going to be Byron Bell? Byron Bell wins the job, starts 15 games in 2014. Panthers, of course, a playoff team. Jordan Gross, his final year in 2013, when the Panthers were a playoff team, he played and started in all 16 games. If you go all the way back to Jordan Gross's rookie year in 2003, the Panthers left tackles had 14 out of 15 seasons where they started at least 15 games. If you want to extend that to 2018, when Chris Clark started in 13 games, it was 15 out of 16 seasons where the Panthers' primary left tackle started at least 13 games. Then you look at 2019, 2020, and 21, the guy starting 9, 7, or 9 games. Like, that's not enough. Having stability, having someone healthy, and of course talented at that position helps a lot. Having continuity, which we're going to talk about here shortly, is so important on the offensive line. So it's not just great that Ickey came out and posted a respectable PFF grade in his rookie year and that he only gave up 3 sacks after giving up 3 in the first 2 games. It's the fact that he was out there. And just having a left tackle who was out there is something the Carolina Panthers have not been able to depend on over the last 3-4 seasons. But now with Ickey Ekwonu here, that is no longer a concern. So I'm so happy to have Ickey Ekwonu here. And the hope is he can get better in pass protection, cut down on those sacks, be even better in the run game, which we knew he's going to be a road grader going into the year, and that he can continue to show that he is the franchise left tackle here in Carolina. And who knows, maybe here in year 2, he turns himself into a Pro Bowler. So the world is right there for his taking in the NFL for Ickey Ekwonu, and it feels so good as a Panthers fan and someone who talks about the team on a daily basis to finally have broken the wheel and have a left tackle who you can depend on and who can help you. And yes, fine, gave the sack against Tampa. It happens. It's football. They get paid too. Ickey was damn good year 1. I can't wait to see what he does in year 2. Now, continuity. That's what I talked about. You had it at left tackle from 03 to 17 and really 18, but you didn't have it in 19, 20, or 21. Now you have it again. The Carolina Panthers didn't have continuity on the offensive line over the last couple seasons, even if they didn't have the talent. Not having continuity hurts. They had it last year. Only 2 starting combinations, but going into this year, they're already down one of their best players last season, Austin Corbett. How do they handle his absence starting off the year? We'll get into that here in just a moment on Locked On Panthers. But before we do that, we are in the middle of baseball season. The Atlanta Braves, I know I keep bringing them up. And hey, look, FanDuel, we don't have sports betting yet in North Carolina. It's going to happen soon. Very excited about it. But I got to riff. I got to talk about my team. And the Braves keep winning. Who's going to stop them? Probably no one. Not you, certainly. But baseball season is in full swing. And there's no better place to get in on all the action than FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Because right now, new customers, that could be you, get a no sweat first bet up to $1,000. It's up to $1,000 back in bonus bets. If your first bet doesn't win, just go to FanDuel.com. So it's locked on to join today so you can bet on Ronald Acuna having 40 home runs and 70 steals in this season. So don't miss your chance to snag a no sweat first bet up to $1,000 when you join FanDuel today. Just go to FanDuel.com. So it's locked on to sign up. FanDuel, official partner of Major League Baseball. During the 2021 season, the Carolina Panthers had one of the worst offensive lines in the NFL. Last year, they had one of the best offensive lines in the NFL. Why is that? Well, one of the reasons we just talked about, Ickey Ekwonu played and started in all 17 games, and he's a better player than Cameron Irving. So having a reliable and healthy left tackle, that certainly helps. Also, Brady Christensen there at left guard, played and started in every game last year for the Carolina Panthers. Certainly better than having Pat Elflein or Michael Jordan or John Brown. What was his name? John Miller. John Miller there, already forgot, at left guard. Then at center, okay, you had a little Matt Paradis. He gets hurt. It's great that you have Pat Elflein, who's flexible enough to go out there. It's the reason why the Carolina Panthers decided to sign him and Cam Irving, one of their first 2 moves in free agency. So that's good, but also not that great. And when Elflein starts last year, he was playing well. Bradley Bozeman, better player. He comes in and really helps Panthers in the run game. Then at right guard, again, Daly, Miller, Jordan, no, thank you. Enter Austin Corbett, fresh off of the Super Bowl. Then at right tackle, the mainstay, Taylor Moton. You had the same guys out there playing every snap in every single game, where the year prior, the Panthers had 13 out of 17 games where they had a different starting combination at offensive line. In whether Pat Elflein, Cam Irving, John Miller, Dennis Daly, any of those guys were good enough to be starting in the first place, really is immaterial when it comes to the fact that you don't build continuity. When you don't have continuity and you don't have talent, you have a disaster. When you have continuity and not great talent, you can at least manage it. But that year and in the year prior, the Panthers just did not be able to manage it because they didn't have guys who were healthy and they didn't have the talent. But last year, when they had the talent and then they had the continuity, they had what was a complete turnaround with their offensive line. Now we enter in this season, and I have a little small concern about the continuity. And it's only one player, luckily. And hopefully it will only be one player the Carolina Panthers have to worry about heading into the season as far as injuries go. It's football. Things happen. But unfortunately, Week 18 in New Orleans, Carolina Panthers suffered not one, but 2 injuries. Now, one of them, Brady Christensen breaking his ankle, not that significant considering he's already back. He'll be ready to go. No concern there, really, unless it becomes a concern, which right now it's not. But the main one was Austin Corbett, who was fantastic for the Panthers last year, tearing his ACL in January. When you tear your ACL in January, when you weigh that much, it's going to be very difficult, no matter how good of an athlete he may be at offensive line, to come back and be ready for training camp, the preseason, let alone week 1. So he is already expected to go on the PUP list, physically unable to perform list, once Carolina Panthers get down to training camp later next month down at Wofford in Spartanburg, South Carolina. And that's not surprising to anyone, because we knew after he injured his knee that even the most optimistic person wasn't being realistic in this situation. Now, the hope, though, is that he will play. My concern, though, is will he be the same guy if he plays? And will he even play at all? Just knowing how late of an injury it occurred, and depending on where the Panthers are. But they decided to restructure his deal, so it looks like he's going to be here at least through the 2024 season, but that all remains to be seen. In the meantime, it looks like Cade Mays is going to be the starting right guard for the Carolina Panthers, and that's not a bad thing at all. We saw Cade Mays play fullback last year in the Arby's package, and can we bring it back? Can we get a little of that's the one thing from Ben McAdoo I want back here in Carolina is the Arby's package, which was so great to use both Cam Irving and Cade Mays in the running game and really get a lot of value out of those two guys as depth pieces for the Carolina Panthers last year. So we got to see Cade Mays back there in the backfield as a fullback. Now we'll get to see him at right guard. If you are familiar with high school recruiting, Cade Mays was a 5-star recruit out of Tennessee, right outside the Knoxville area, started at Georgia, then transferred to Tennessee. Really good player, gets drafted last year. I think in the 5th or 6th round, solid player, has the body, has the athleticism. When he first got here, now Rule said the same thing about Brady Christensen. Oh, he could play tackle for us. He could play guard or center. They said the same thing about Cade Mays. Cade Mays is going to fit in there right at guard where he should naturally be in the NFL. Maybe one day he turns into a center, but right now that's not a concern as Bradley Bozeman is here in Carolina. He's going to step in and be the right guard. And I think he can be a good player. The problem is we didn't see enough of Cade Mays last year to really bank on that being the case. 51 offensive snaps, which is 5% of the snaps. And most of those snaps were played, of course, week 18 in New Orleans. Austin Corbett played in 983 snaps last year offensively. That's 96.75% of the offensive snaps. He did not miss a single snap all season until tearing his ACL there in New Orleans in the first half. The only snaps he missed were in the second half after going down with injury when Cade Mays filled in. Corbett also posted a 69.1 PFF grade. That's only behind Taylor Moton, who posted a 69.3 PFF grade. So he was your second best offensive lineman all season here in Carolina. And he brought continuity because he was out there healthy and he was good. Moton was out there healthy. He was good. Bradley Bozeman, when he came in, and even Elflein, when he was out there, was healthy and he was good. Christensen, the lowest graded PFF offensive lineman for the Panthers last year, was out there healthy and he played well. And in Ickey, we already talked about him. Continuity is so important. So when you lose the continuity of someone who's a veteran and who's played a ton of snaps for you, and then you bring in a second-year player who did not play very much last year, there potentially could be a drop-off, and I wouldn't be surprised if there were. Now, I'm not saying that Cade Mays, throughout his entirety as a starter, if he does indeed start at right guard, is not going to be good. He's not going to be replacement level. I do think that with reps and really being out there throughout training camp and throughout the preseason as the starting right guard, he will in time be good enough. And the hope is that he can turn out to be maybe your future there at the right guard position or at one of the guard positions here on the roster. So I'm excited to see Cade Mays. I just look at just the depth of it all. And when you lose one guy, especially when you've seen it snowball a couple years ago, where you lose a guy and you keep losing another guy, you start throwing out some guys you don't want to play. And it's good to have depth. What the Carolina Panthers certainly have on the offensive line, I just have that one concern of, oh man, you lose Corbett. Is he going to be the same guy? Is he going to come back? And how long is he going to be out? Are you going to be out without him for 5 weeks, 10 weeks? Is it only going to be 1 week? Is it going to be the whole season? Not quite sure. But I am excited to see what Cade Mays can do for the Carolina Panthers. I'm glad the Carolina Panthers drafted him, have him. And when you look at what you have here in your offensive line coach and James Campen, really, there should be not much of a concern. But when we're looking at the biggest questions about the position, it's really how do they handle the absence of Austin Corbett heading into the season, and for how long it is he's going to be absent, how do they handle it? And how does a guy like Cade Mays perform? I think he'll be fine. I think the Carolina Panthers, as long as the other guys stay healthy, they should be fine as well on that offensive line. And by the way, Justin McCray, veteran, followed camping all over the place. He can also play guard, even though I think he's kind of more here as a backup center right now for the Panthers. So that's the biggest question about the position group. Let's take a look at the rest of the position group heading into the season. As I told y'all, feels like they're the strength of the roster. Also, the depth. It's really hard, no matter what level of football you're at. Pop Warner, high school, college, the NFL, to find depth on the offensive line. Well, the Carolina Panthers have it, and man, I'm damn glad they do. We'll get into that here in just a moment on Locked On Panthers. Yeah, I don't really think there's any question that after looking what this unit was over the last couple of years, that it's gone from the biggest weakness to the biggest strength on the roster. And you can debate whether quarterback was the biggest weakness or whether it was offensive line. They were both equally terrible, and they both didn't help each other out. We talked about the 2021 season with all the injuries on the offensive line, also just the lack of really starter quality talent on the roster. And then looking at Sam Darnold, yes, if he has a better offensive line like we saw last year, he can perform. But also you saw last year, he's still Sam Darnold, turns into a pumpkin, not that very good of a quarterback. Wish him all the luck down there in San Francisco. But still, when you don't have a good offensive line, you have a good quarterback, well, you don't have a chance in hell to win at any level of football. And we saw that over the last couple seasons here in Carolina. When you have a good offensive line, you still have shoddy quarterback play. While you might have more of an opportunity to win, especially if you can run the football, you still need that quarterback. So it's great now the Carolina Panthers have a franchise left tackle in Ickey Ekwonu, and now they have hopefully a franchise quarterback in Bryce Young, and I do think that will help them moving forward. But really what will help Bryce Young moving forward is having an offensive line he can step behind, and trust that those guys are going to keep him upright. And Ickey, I believe, will do that. Brady Christensen, Bradley Bozeman, Cade Mays, Austin Corbett, whenever he comes back, and Taylor Moton. I believe that all five of those gentlemen, plus six or two, one of them, all six of those gentlemen just named, will be able to keep Bryce Young upright and give him an opportunity to have success. We talked about, his size, his weight, and all that kind of stuff. Well, if he doesn't get touched, pretty hard to get injured. And it is football. And, he's going to get tackled at some point in time. He will get sacked, and we will all hold our collective breaths, and it will be able to breathe when he gets up. And, he tells the guys, hey, guys, can we not do that ever again? And they, respond by keeping him upright and keeping him safe. So I'm excited to see what this offensive line can do this year, as they, without a doubt, to me, have become the strength of the Carolina Panthers roster. So Ickey Ekwonu is back at left tackle, Brady Christensen back at left guard, and there could be a competition there with him and Chandler Zavala. It doesn't really feel like that's going to happen. Zavala was dealing with a pectoral issue during OTA's mandatory minicamp. Hopefully that's not anything serious, especially, hey, when you're blocking, you're reaching out, that's a muscle that you absolutely cannot have compromised playing the offensive line position, particularly there at left guard. So hopefully that will be fine, because the Panthers really need someone who was fantastic last year at NC State. And in the event that Christensen goes down, he can step in. He already has the continuity, buzzword there, built with Ickey Ekwonu back when they played at NC State. Even though it wasn't that many games, they still spent plenty of time next to each other in practice. So you got Chandler Zavala there as backup, Bradley Bozeman back at center. Justin McCray can either play guard or center, probably more of a backup center at this point in time. Maybe slots in there at right guard. We'll see. Austin Corbett will, whenever he comes back, will be there as a starter at right guard. Cade Mays probably starting off at right guard to start off the season. Then Taylor Moton at right tackle. Then Cameron Irving at right tackle as the backup, as your swing tackle. And I talk about it going into the offseason, like, hey, you got to find a swing tackle. And I had no problem bringing back Cam Irving here in Carolina. The role the Panthers asked him to play in 21 was not a role that he nor the team was going to be successful with him playing. He's just not that caliber of a player. Maybe early in his career he was, but we found out that after being a first-round pick at FSU, he just wasn't really a first-round tackle. But he's still in the league. And that's one of the things. We talk about guys, he's a bust and all that kind of stuff. If he's still in the league, he's still getting money, he's still playing football, then it's really hard for me to sit here and say the guy's an outright bust. And I know someone's like, oh, what are you talking about? He's a bust. Okay, fine. Like, he didn't live up to be like an all-pro and all that kind of stuff. Whatever. But he's still playing football. He's still living his dream. He's still doing fine. And he's helping a football team. It's not like he's out there being a complete liability. Now in this role, or we saw him utilized last year in the Arby's package, he can help the Panthers in short yardage situations. He can help them run the football. So adding an extra tackle and having Cam Irving, who's a veteran, is good. And if something were to happen to Ickey or Taylor Moton, the Panthers would have been screwed. And especially when you think about, had they not brought Cameron Irving and they just stuck with the tackles that they have on the roster, if say it was Larnell Coleman instead. So say something happens to Ickey or Taylor Moton, then you would have been in a situation where it's like, okay, you only have one of your starting tackles. You maybe have to kick out Brady Christensen. Then you got to put in maybe McCray or a rookie in Zavala, and you're out here got a lot of replacement level players. Yeah, your lowest graded offensive lineman at a tackle position. You maybe have a second year guy at tackle position, or you have, a veteran guy at tackle position. Then you have possibly a veteran who's been all around and who's a backup starting. You have a second year player who played in 50 something snaps last year starting. Like, that would not have been a good situation for the Carolina Panthers had they not brought back Cam Irving. But now that they have him, they can afford, a short-term injury to one of their tackles. Now, of course, knock on wood, don't want that to happen. Lucky rabbits, all that kind of stuff, throw salt all over the shoulder. Like, I don't want that to happen at all. Got to kill the bad luck snail. I'm not hoping that, but I'm telling you, much better situation. And that's what depth is. You lose your starting right guard. You can have Cade Mays step in there. You can have Justin McCray potentially step in there. That is a good thing. You have depth and you can trust it. If something happens to the tackles, you can throw Cameron Irving in there, and he may not really trust him long term, but he can at least play the position, and he's familiar with the scheme and with the O-line coach and all that they're going to want him to do. And you have a guy in Zavala who played really well last year at NC State. If he has to step in and play, he's only playing a guard position. He can handle it. So they have depth on the offensive line, which is so important. And I think those 9 guys will be the guys that you have on the roster this year. Now, they'll probably only start off with 8. And there's one question, too, about the offensive line position group is, would they be willing to keep a guy like Michael Jordan on the roster, or does he get cut and maybe signed to the practice squad? They can use him as someone they elevate on Sundays until, they can only do it twice, but that's something they kind of consider. Sam Tecklenburg's back here as a center who'll be trying to battle for a job. Deontay Brown, we talk about how the Panthers made a terrible decision by drafting a long snapper in the 6th round. The bad decision was they drafted Deontay Brown, a guard, in the 6th round instead of taking Trey Smith, a guard out of Tennessee. Now, his medicals and the blood clot issue he had at Tennessee is the reason why he dropped that far, which I'm sure many people had no clue of. But still, if you want to be mad about anything, be mad about they took the wrong guard there in the 6th round, didn't make the roster last year, was a practice squad guy. His weight was always an issue. So the hope is maybe he's got his nutrition under control, and that now another year with James Campen, that will help him. Could he make the roster? It's a possibility, but it feels like that ship has kind of sailed for him. They got some other guys like Nash Jensen, JD DiRienzo, who was there in Rutgers last year. Got Larnell Coleman back, Ricky Lee from A&T, BJ Wilson. Those are all players that, especially some of the guys I mentioned, like Jensen, I think he's out of North Dakota State, DiRienzo, Lee, and Wilson. Those are the guys who are going to have to keep Matt Corral upright late in those preseason games. So please, do a better job than the guys did last year and keep that guy healthy and give him a chance to develop. But we look at the offensive line group, like, it's pretty much settled. Ickey, Brady, Bradley, Corbett going to start off on PUP. Probably won't start off the season. He'll be on PUP list, so we don't have to worry about that. Moton, and then Irving, Mays, McCray, and Zavala likely filling out the rest of the roster spots to have 8 offensive linemen heading into the 2023 season. A group that was a major liability has now become the clear strength of the Carolina Panthers roster heading into 2023. That's going to wrap up this edition of the Locked On Panthers podcast, a part of the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, as always, Julian Council, talking Carolina Panthers with you on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays until we're out of offseason mode on July 17th. We'll be back to your team every day. Be sure, y'all, to subscribe or follow for free on YouTube or wherever you listen to your favorite podcast. And be sure to follow me, Julian Council, on Twitter at Julian Council, where you can at me or DM me once the weekly Friday mailbag comes back on July 21st. You can still just hit me up in my DMs if you want to, because, hey, I'm always open to answer any questions that you may have as long as I'm free. So go ahead and do that. But again, follow me on Twitter at Julian Council. In the meantime, be safe, be happy, be whole. As always, keep pounding. And then on Monday, we're going to be talking about those hog mollies on the other side, the Panthers defensive line evaluations. That's coming up on a Monday here on Locked On Panthers.